outside the world that shouldn't be there. Okay? We could have a fistula from our guts to our skin. We could have a fistula from our anything to our bladder, from whatever. There's just a connection between two organs that shouldn't be there. Okay? So your fistula, let's just for an example, we have ducts here, glands that make the same zit glands are on our face or on the inside of our asshole too.
Yeah.
All right. So what happens most of the time is you get a zit, you have a bowel movement, the zit pops and it drains into the stool and it comes out. Okay. Occasionally, what happens? It goes the other way. It burrows, and the body says, "Hey, this pus that's here shouldn't be there. It's a zit."
Yeah.
Right? So what does it do? It pushes it out.
Yeah.
And it's pushed it out, and it could push it out through any number of different tracks. Whichever way is the least resistance is how the body pushes it out.
Create more and more tracks.
And it creates a tract, right? And when it does that, let's say it goes here, okay?
You get an abscess there.
You get an abscess because the skin isn't, and it leaves a duct, right? So this is what you had. I drained this, all this pus came out, and then what I noticed is that there was a hole on the inside of your rectum, all right? And so I got a catheter, and I just injected water into here, and it literally just went whoop, and came out your anus, okay? Because the hole on the inside was still there.
Yeah.
So what do we do when situations like that happen? Well, number one is you just drain the abscess first.
Then
Because the reason we drain the abscess is because sometimes this internal opening, you'll get lucky and it will heal on its own.
Yeah.
If the internal opening doesn't heal, skin heals all the time.
Yeah.
The internal opening doesn't heal, then pus will go and it'll happen again and again and again. And that's when you develop a true fistula. So, if you have a fistula, there are multiple ways to treat it. Okay, we're going to this side now. So the first way to treat it when it's acutely infected, if you're pussing the area out still, is, let's say here's your fistula, okay, is that we keep the tract open so that whatever forms in there drains out easily before forming an abscess, right? So we put basically a suture through it like this, and then tie it to itself. Just basically, it's like, almost like a ring on your anus. It's a little plastic suture. We call it a seton, S-E-T-O-N. And that holds the area open so that it can then drain all the infection. Because what we've come to realize is if we do surgery when it's acutely infected for fistula surgery, it doesn't work because it just melts it away, right? So once you have not sterilized but depussified the area, essentially, then you can go in and talk about second stage procedures to fix it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that includes a flap where you get a piece of skin here or a piece of muscle here and you rotate it to cover that internal opening. Sometimes you ligate the tract right in the middle. And sometimes, depending on if it's superficial or not and the length of the patient's anus, you can just cut this tissue over it, leave them with a small wound on their butt that will scar closed over time. Okay? That procedure is called a fistulotomy. I mean, there's also plugs, there's also all this fibrin glues that you can use. None of these are like 100%. There's like 10 different surgeries you can do for this because not one of them is 100%. If it was, then we wouldn't do it. Then we would only do that one. There's these guys in like Southeast Asia that say they have a 98% success rate with doing this ligation procedure, and no one believes them. Because they're like, yeah, we've been doing this for 100 years and no one gets 98%. You guys are fudging your data. All right? But anyways, so anyways, the fistulotomy is the traditional way of treating this.
Yeah,
where it scars close. Cause it's basically
that's what I read about.
Yeah, it's basically, think of an irrigation tunnel under your thing, and you just cut the dirt on top of it, open up the top part of that irrigation channel, and then it just scars closed. Right, the body fills it from the bottom up. It's exactly what that is. That works extremely well. The problem is the side effects down the road, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, because as we know, the anal muscle lives here, right? And the anal muscle obviously opens and closes, and it gives us control over our function, right? So if this duct is this number, and it encompasses this portion of the anal muscle, if you cut all of it, the dude 15 years later is gonna have issues, right? If the duct is really superficial and it encompasses just a tiny amount of muscle, sometimes you can get away with it and it's no big deal, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes these are just subcutaneous or just under the skin.
Yeah.
So if you start developing pus and pain come again, we know that the internal hole didn't heal and you got unlucky again, right? If that happens, I would take you to the operating room and give you a seton. In the initial operation, even though when I put the red rubber catheter, the catheter in here and squirted water, it came right out your anus, I wanted to give you the benefit of the doubt because a lot of times it'll heal. And if I put aceton in, I'm making you have a fistula because it will scar around that rubber tube, right? And so it gives you, by definition, a fistula. So I said, well, let's give this kid a shot and hopefully he doesn't have to have any fistulas and maybe it just heals and we get lucky. If not, we have to go start the whole real process again. In the interim, I'll give you some antibiotics because it says you had a little pus, I believe you. It may be fibrinous, it may be the body's natural healing tissues, or it may be actual pus, don't know. I'm gonna still give you some.
I can show you a picture.
Yeah, show me. But I also want them to do a colonoscopy to look to your entire colon because it's relatively uncommon to get a kid with this significant of an abscess.
So like, this is a picture of my, whenever it was.
Yeah, so that, so that right there, that's not true pus.
Okay, and then after I wiped it out, it was, something like this.
Yeah, so that is fibrinous. So you're running around and you get a carpet burn, right? You slide on the ground. I don't know if you played basketball in carpet gyms. I did, right? And we were made to dive on the ground for the ball as part of our training, whatever, right? And we just, literally, you just burns everywhere. And then about 2 days later, you get that little fake early skin. It's kind of mushy, yellowish. You get in the shower and it burns like hell when it comes off, right? Okay. That's fibrinous tissue. That's the body's natural healing jujus.
So you don't think that's like pus?
Typically, no. Typically, pus is milkier white than that.
Okay.
If there's consistency to it, and it looks like there's a little consistency to that, that's typically fibrinous tissue.
Okay.
I'll still give you some antibiotics just to be safe, even though it's really not indicated and may cause harm, but what the hell, we'll just give you a little antibiotics for 5 days.
Also I was going to say that, I smoke weed, and I feel like, I looked it up online and whatnot, and they were saying that there's it basically can weaken your immune system to the point where you're more likely to get a streptococcus bacteria type of thing.
So there is no double-blind randomized trials on weed.
Right. Exactly.
I wish there were. I wish it was freaking legal, because it should be.
So at this point, I think that maybe that fibrinous tissue or whatever was more brought on whenever I smoked weed.
Maybe so. I don't know. I don't. There's no data on that.
I'm just not going to smoke,
I think that's a great idea.
But I just wanted to at least.
The reason I said for weed, from my personal standpoint, is we spend way too much money in the criminal justice system doing stupid things to cause taxpayers to pay something that doesn't help.
That's not even related.
Right, and we incarcerate more people than anybody in the world. It's dumb.
Yeah.
So, but from a health standpoint, I have no data to say whether whether it inhibits or helps healing. I don't know.
Okay. We wasted a lot of time not doing that.
Not
having medical.
People,
not having medical
need the information.
Yeah, right. I wish we could run a bunch of trials on it. Maybe it's helpful for seizures, maybe it's not. But the reality is, I have nothing to know about this.
I'm just looking at stuff online. I'm just trying to, keep that open communication with y'all to let y'all know. I'm noticing things. And I'm I just need to.
And whenever the state of Texas gets smart and or the United States gets smart and hopefully decriminalizes it, then maybe we can get somewhere, right?
Yeah, because what I'm reading is there's all this bacteria and whatnot, related to it. And I don't know, I guess you never really hear about that until you look it up, And they're there's a study in Canada saying that people are more likely to, have bacterial infection type of thing. I'm like, well, that's
the problem with that is when you actually think about it, it's really, really challenging to create a system in which you can control for all the variables for something that is not legal, right? Yeah. So how do you make it a true trial where 50% of the population gets this, or 50% of the study participants get this, and 50% don't, and then you control for the variables. It's really challenging where it's not legal. Maybe they could do it in Colorado or Washington State, but here we can't, and we just don't have numbers. We don't have big enough numbers. Trust me, if it was legal, there'd be big enough numbers. People do it all the time, right? We have studies, but we don't have the high quality.
So where do you think he is right now in this process? Just kind of a recap.
So I honestly think that your external wound is this big compared to where it was. I give you some antibiotics and I would wait. You'll declare yourself. If you start noticing...
So it's healing.
It's healing. The internal stuff is healing. Now whether it heals completely and seals, or whether it heals to this tiny of a little divot hole...
And then a little bit of pus comes out forever.
Right. And what happens when people develop chronic fistulas is they don't typically present with the big abscesses again. What happens is, once they develop this, let's assume here's the tract, and this is not how long your tract is, but let's assume, okay? They end up with a little nubbin right here that's kind of like that. You know when you have a big wound and you get a scar and it's got kind of like that shiny skin, and then every once in a while it'll open up and it'll bleed a little bit, open up and bleed a little bit. That's what that ends up looking like.
Yeah.
And the body will just push things out, and every once in a while it'll drain. Every once in a while it'll drain, right? If you develop that, you have a fistula by definition. That's the classic look of an external opening of a fistula.
Yeah.
If you develop that, then we have to start doing something, if you desire, to fix it, okay? But that's how I would approach this.
So you think he's normally healing right now?
I think your
What he
healing,
saw, what he thought was pus may actually be normal.
may have normal healing tissue.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I was concerned is just because I hadn't seen it at all before, you know?
Yeah,
For probably like 2 weeks, you know?
right, and it may be that your body's finally getting to the point where it's actually healing the darn thing.
Now, he said he got a little dizzy yesterday or the day
Oh,
before.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I almost passed out. But I mean, I was smoking weed, so I don't know if that was related to it, you know?
And you haven't been that active either.
But like, literally, I got to the point where I was like almost tunnel vision, falling over,
So
white
typically,
noise and stuff.
I mean,
typically
I mean,
sepsis presents a lot differently than that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, sepsis doesn't occur like, oh, I'm septic. It typically is a process. I feel starting to feel worse. It's a couple of days. The pain in my perirectal area is getting significantly more severe. I have a lot of deep pressure in my pelvis associated with a high fever, and over time, your pressure drops and you become septic from a bacteria. If it occurs within a span of a few minutes while you're doing weed, it may have been some bad weed. I don't know.
I mean, or just, yeah, I think I was just maybe not ready. Like, you know, I was just like low energy and just got hit right in the face.
Yeah, who knows?
I don't know.
But typically, that doesn't present like a bacterial thing. That doesn't sound bacterial-like.
I just want to make sure I'm telling you whatever I'm going through. So that, and now I'm like, I just need to stop so that can just tell.
So one reasonable thing to do is to say, hey, we don't have any data on this. We don't know if it's good or bad. So if we want to eliminate variables, that's one variable we can eliminate. So that, then you could say, okay, this is truly, from the medical data, this is what's happening. This is what we know.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not skewing the information.
Yeah, exactly.
so he has antibiotics. Are we going to give him new antibiotics?
The same ones we had before were the ones that, I mean, it obviously worked because that whole area was red and inflamed, and now it's not.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we made this appointment a couple days ago. This timing was perfect. What's the next step with another visit here?
So here's what I would do. If the thing heals, you take some antibiotics, or you don't take the antibiotics and it heals, and you have no more symptoms, I'm going to see you again, right? Unless you want to come and say hi, mazel tov. If it develops that chronic little draining thing, you can come whenever you want to see me, because now it has a safe out the vast majority of the time, and it won't pus out. Or if it does it just a little bit before it pops the skin and drains.
I mean, I feel comfortable making an appointment like for a week from now,
Yeah.
just so we can get back in, get a view, and
Or if you want to see me in a week, that's fine. I'll just take a look. It doesn't make a difference.
I mean,
Whatever you want to do.
yeah,
I mean, for sure, I just want to, like, you know, give it some time to heal, because, I mean, I see people that are online are saying that this stuff could take a while. You know, I'm trying to be back to normal, but if it's not, you know, just right away, you gotta take the time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no rush in it, right?
what kind of time frame would we be looking at? If where we were a week ago to where we are right now, what's the best scenario? In a week from now, he doesn't feel it.
Well, if in a week you're back, the external opening is healed. I mean, it's this big compared to how I left it.
You can see it today.
Oh, yeah, you
Okay,
can see
so
where it
let's
was.
make a point for a week. I mean,
Yeah.
first,
Yeah, sure.
take away any unknown and
It
do
doesn't
that.
bother me, but I just want to make sure that, you know, whatever time frame we give is enough that I could heal in between or whatever.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
Well,
So if it's a week, 2 weeks, or whatever you think would be most reasonable from this state. I mean,
Yeah.
you want to feel up here that you're getting information, and that can be a good information.
Yeah.
in a week.
Okay, yeah, sure, we could do a week from now.
Sounds reasonable?
Good. Good. Thanks.
Cool. All right.
Very good.
My nurses were all like, all the time, they're like, so much better.
Way, that's good. That's excellent.
But it's like it describes it, doesn't it? Right? And you're like, oh, that's what happened.
I don't need to see all the color and everything.
Here's some stick drawings, you know, that's all you need. It's not that hard. I'm just a plumber. That's it. The engine's on, but I'm just a plumber.
So what does he have like on